On 12 February 1997, a 23-year-old Lance Bombardier of the 3rd Regiment Royal Horse Artillery, named Steven Restick, was standing at a sandbagged vehicle checkpoint at Bessbrook Mill in County Armagh. A local woman named Lorraine McElroy had stopped her car. Restick leaned toward the window to return her driving licence. A single .50 caliber round struck him through the upper torso. He died in hospital that day. He was the last British soldier killed by the Provisional IRA before the ceasefire of August 1997. The triggerman's name was Michael Caraher. He was 30 years old, from a small place in South Armagh called Cullyhanna, and he had been the principal marksman of the South Armagh Sniper team since 1991. For 30 years, the British documentary record has largely said otherwise. Reference websites, news summaries, and documentary programmes have named a different man, a co-conspirator convicted of murder under joint enterprise law, as the sniper who fired the shot. 3 independent commenters on a single YouTube documentary on a channel called War Stories EU, with over 160,000 views on that video alone, have been writing the correction in plain language with their own names attached for years. One of them wrote, "Michael Caraher, the brother of Fergal Caraher, who was killed by British soldiers in 1990, was the triggerman, not McGinn." Another, "Michael Caraher was the South Armagh Sniper. His brother Fergal was shot in the back by the British at an army checkpoint." A third corrected a separate factual error in the same thread. Steven Restick was the last soldier killed by the sniper team, not Daniel Blinko. Blinko was shot in '93. 3 people, same video. The comments sit on the public record with scores of upvotes apiece. The court record confirms everything they wrote. Toby Harnden, who spent 4 years as the Daily Telegraph's Ireland correspondent and published Bandit Country, the IRA and South Armagh in 1999, describes Michael Caraher as an IRA sniper responsible for the deaths of up to 8. The Wikipedia article on the South Armagh Sniper campaign, drawing on Harnden and on the court record, states it plainly. Caraher was thought to be the shooter in several attacks. The Court of Appeal judgment in the case, the Queen versus Michael Caraher and Bernard Michael McGinn, delivered 29 September 2000 by Lord Justice Nicholson, records that in police interviews, his co-accused Bernard McGinn told detectives that he had travelled in the car used in the attack, but that another man fired the fatal shot. McGinn incriminated his co-accused as the sniper. The Irish Times headline from the 1999 sentencing read, "Monaghan man incriminated co-accused as sniper, court told." The Belfast Telegraph, reporting on the Court of Appeal, was more direct still. Michael Caraher was the man who shot the soldier with the large rifle. None of this was secret. All of it was in the public record. And yet the dominant frame in subsequent documentary coverage attached the triggerman designation to McGinn, because McGinn was the man convicted of the murders, including Restick's murder, at Belfast Crown Court on the 19th March 1999. McGinn received 490 years for 34 separate offences, including 3 life sentences for murder. The press called him the IRA's South Armagh Sniper. The documentaries followed the press. The misidentification compounded. The distinction matters legally and factually. Under joint enterprise law, a person present at and party to a killing can be convicted of murder without having fired the weapon. McGinn was convicted of Restick's murder on that basis. Caraher's formal convictions at the same trial were for possession of rifles and ammunition with intent to endanger life. possession of property in connection with terrorism, and the attempted murder of a police officer at Fork Hill in March 1997. He was sentenced to 25 years. The court didn't convict him of Restick's murder as a named charge, but the confession of his co-accused, recorded in the appeal judgment, placed him behind the rifle. Harnden named him as the shooter. The Belfast Telegraph named him as the shooter. And 3 YouTube commenters, writing independently, named him correctly, while the documentaries didn't. To understand why Michael Caraher was behind that rifle in February 1997, you need to go back 7 years, to the evening of 30th December 1990 in Cullyhanna, South Armagh. The relevant primary document is a confidential Northern Ireland Office memorandum, now declassified and held by Prony, dated 4th November 1993. It was written to brief a minister before the murder trial of 2 Royal Marines. The document sets out the background. Fergal Caraher and his brother Michael, the memo records, met up in the car park of a public house in Cullyhanna, South Armagh, called the Light and Easy Bar, on the afternoon of Wednesday 30th December 1990. Fergal had passed through a vehicle checkpoint operated by Royal Marines of 45 Commando. He stopped in the pub car park a short distance from a second checkpoint. The 2 brothers got into a car to leave. What happened next was disputed in court. The Marines maintained that the car struck a soldier and drove forward with another on the bonnet, and that they opened fire in response. The family and civilian witnesses maintained that the car drove normally from the car park onto the road, that no soldier was struck, and that the Marines simply opened fire without warning. The Marines fired approximately 20 shots. Fergal Caraher, 20 years old, was struck and killed. Michael Caraher was seriously wounded. He lost a lung. 2 Royal Marines, Lance Corporal Richard Elkington, 23, and Private Andrew Callahan, 21, both of 45 Commando, were charged with Fergal's murder and tried in 1993 before Lord Chief Justice Brian Hutton at Belfast Crown Court. Both were acquitted on all charges. A non-governmental public inquiry, convened at the request of the Caraher family and chaired by Michael Mansfield QC, had previously concluded that there were sufficient grounds to indict or charge with murder those soldiers who unreasonably fired their weapons. The inquiry was held in June 1991 at Cullyhanna Community Centre, 6 months after the shooting. The inquest into Fergal's death is widely reported in secondary sources as having returned an open verdict. What isn't in dispute? Michael Caraher was present in that car when his brother died. He spent months recovering from his wound. By 1991, per Harnden's account in Bandit Country, the IRA's South Armagh Sniper operation was active, and Caraher was part of it. The connection between the checkpoint in December 1990 and the checkpoint in February 1997 isn't inferred. Multiple independent sources, Harnden, the sourced Wikipedia entry on the South Armagh Sniper, and the Fergal Caraher Wikipedia article drawing on the Irish Times, state it directly. His brother's death made him. The South Armagh Sniper campaign ran from early 1990 to February 1997. According to the Wikipedia article on the campaign, drawing on Harnden and on the Operation Banner MOD review, 2 separate sniper teams operated in the area, one based around Dromintee in the east, one around Cullyhanna in the west. The Cullyhanna team was the unit that would be broken in April 1997. Frank McCabe, a senior IRA member from Crossmaglen, identified by Harnden as the volunteer in charge of the Cullyhanna unit, commanded the operation with the nickname One Shot. The weapons were Barrett M82 and M90.50 caliber anti-material rifles, acquired in the United States. Harnden documents the procurement routes in Chapter 10 of Bandit Country. One Barrett M82 had been assembled in Dublin in August 1986 after its components were shipped in parcels from Chicago. Another arrived via Martin Quigley, an IRA member who had travelled to Pennsylvania to study at Lehigh University. FBI files confirmed a Barrett had been successfully shipped to Ireland before his arrest in 1989. At least 2 Barrett M90 rifles were bought as recently as January 1995, part of a batch of 2 sold to a Cuban-American named Michael Suarez in Cleveland, who passed them to an intermediary who shipped them, along with ammunition and telescopic sights, to the Irish Republic. That second consignment entered the IRA's inventory 6 months after the 1994 ceasefire. An unidentified IRA member quoted in Bandit Country said of the Barrett, "What's special about the Barrett is the huge kinetic energy. The bullet can just walk through a flak jacket." The campaign's verified victim list, drawn from the Wikipedia table sourced to Harnden and the Operation Banner report, records 9 security force fatalities attributed to the 2 South Armagh Sniper teams between 1992 and 1997. Private Paul Turner, 28 August 1992, Crossmaglen. Constable Jonathan Reed, 25 February 1993, Crossmaglen. Lance Corporal Lawrence Dixon, 17th March 1993, Fork Hill. Private John Randall, 26 June 1993, Newtown Hamilton. Lance Corporal Kevin Pullin, 17th July 1993, Crossmaglen. Constable Brian Woods, 2nd November 1993, Newry. Lance Bombardier Paul Garrett, 2nd December 1993, Keady. Guardsman Daniel Blinko, 30th December 1993, Crossmaglen. Lance Bombardier Steven Restick, 12th February 1997, Bessbrook. On Blinko specifically, he was a British soldier, a guardsman of the 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards, killed by an IRA sniper in Crossmaglen on 30th December 1993, the 3rd anniversary of Fergal Caraher's death. The YouTube commenter's correction was directed at a claim elsewhere in the documentary that Blinko was the last victim. He wasn't. Restick in February 1997 was the last. The gap between Blinko in December 1993 and Restick in February 1997 spans the entire 1994 IRA ceasefire and its aftermath. The Barrett M90 recovered at the Freeduff Farm arrest on 10th April 1997 was forensically linked by intelligence and forensic reports to the 1997 shootings specifically. Harnden notes in Bandit Country that the IRA's second Barrett M90 wasn't among the weapons recovered, meaning 2 rifles from that M90 batch remained unaccounted for after the arrests. The British counter-operation that eventually broke the Cullyhanna team took years to build. The 1994 IRA ceasefire, which ran from August 1994 to February 1996, gave British intelligence an extended window to develop the surveillance picture without the operational pressure of active attacks. The ceasefire period, per Harnden and the Wikipedia account of the Sniper campaign, was actively used by the security forces to accumulate intelligence they couldn't safely gather while the team was shooting. The operation against the Sniper unit ran under sustained British military and intelligence effort through the mid-1990s. Bessbrook Mill itself, the British Army's main base in South Armagh, a converted Victorian spinning mill about 30 miles southwest of Belfast, served as the operational hub. It was, through much of the Troubles, the busiest military helipad in Europe, helicopter transport being the only safe way for soldiers to move through territory where road movement invited ambush and sniper attack. The PVCP, the Permanent Vehicle Checkpoint, at Bessbrook Mills perimeter, was one of the routine control points in this environment. Restick was standing at that checkpoint when the shot came. SAS Staff Sergeant Gaz Hunter, identified by Harnden as a senior figure in the British effort against the sniper teams, with experience in South Armagh stretching back to 1975, was part of the sustained counter-operation. Captain Rupert Thorneloe of the Welsh Guards, who served as an intelligence liaison officer between 3rd Infantry Brigade and RUC Special Branch, is also identified by Harnden as central to the British effort. Thorneloe later reached the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and was killed in July 2009 by an IED in Afghanistan. The security forces had the sniper team's vehicle under surveillance on the day of the Restick shooting. The police ombudsman's investigation, published in December 2006, confirmed that the car used in the attack was one of a number of vehicles under surveillance in the area at the time. Special Branch held an intelligence assessment from that period, indicating the Mazda car might be used in an attack in its final stages of planning. The Ombudsman found no evidence anyone knew the specific plans for the vehicle that day, and no evidence the attack could have been prevented, but the surveillance infrastructure was in place and had been in place for some time. On the 10th of April 1997, 2 months after Restick's death, SAS soldiers moved on a farm complex near Friduff in the west of South Armagh. After a brief scuffle, 4 men were detained and handed to the RUC: Michael Caraher, James McArdle, Bernard McGinn and Martin Mines. A Barrett M90 rifle was recovered, stored in an armour-plated Mazda at the farm. The RUC took fingerprints. A match was made, as Harnden records in Bandit Country. Wikipedia notes one significant operational constraint. The British troops were under strict orders to avoid IRA casualties. The objective was arrest and prosecution, not elimination. The decision to take the team alive rather than ambush them secured the convictions that followed, and secured the public court record that this account is built on. McGinn, after arrest, provided the RUC with substantial information about IRA activities and named Frank McCabe as the commander behind the sniper campaign, before eventually withdrawing his statement. The 4 men were tried at Belfast Crown Court before Lord Chief Justice Carswell, sitting without a jury under Northern Ireland emergency legislation, a diplock court, the standard format for scheduled terrorist offences in Northern Ireland at the time. Convictions were delivered on the 19th of March 1999. Bernard McGinn, 41, of Castle Blaney, County Monaghan, received 490 years across 34 offences, including 3 life sentences for the murders of Lance Bombardier Steven Restick, Lance Bombardier Paul Garrett, and Thomas Johnston, a former UDR soldier killed in Keady. His convictions also covered the Canary Wharf bombing of the 9th of February 1996, the device that killed 2 people in London's Docklands and ended the IRA's first ceasefire, along with the Hammersmith Bridge attack later in 1996. James McArdle, of Crossmaglen, was separately linked to the Canary Wharf bomb by fingerprint evidence. Wikipedia states plainly that one of the team's members, McArdle, planted the bomb at Canary Wharf in 1996. He and the others were convicted at the 1999 trial for joint possession of the Barrett rifle at the Friduff farm. Martin Mines, of Silverbridge, South Armagh, was likewise convicted for his possession role. Michael Caraher was sentenced to 25 years. His convictions covered possession of rifles and ammunition with intent to endanger life, possession of property in connection with terrorism, and the attempted murder of Constable Ronald Galway at Fork Hill on the 29th of March 1997. He wasn't formally convicted of Restoric's murder as a named charge, but McGinn's confession, recorded in the Court of Appeal judgment of the 29th of September 2000, placed Caraher as the shooter. The Irish Times had reported the same thing in March 1999. So had the Belfast Telegraph. So had Harnden. His defence solicitor at the trial was Rosemary Nelson. She was assassinated by a loyalist car bomb outside her Lurgan home on the 15th of March 1999, 4 days before the verdict. All 4 men were released under the Northern Ireland Sentences Act 1998, the prisoner release mechanism established by the Good Friday Agreement of April 1998. CNN reported Michael Caraher's release in July 2000, describing him as 32 years old. Born approximately 1967 or 1968, he was 29 or 30 when he fired the shot in February 1997, and 32 when he walked out of prison 3 years later. Why did the wrong name persist? The mechanics aren't complicated. McGinn was the man convicted of the murders. The press reported his sentencing under headlines about the IRA's South Armagh Sniper. Websites picked up the press framing. Documentaries sourced the websites or the same press archive. The BritishEmpire.co.uk entry on Restoric's death reads, "He was shot by sniper Bernard McGinn on the 12th of February 1997. A YouTube news clip carries the title, "IRA's South Armagh Sniper Bernard McGinn sentenced to 490 years." The murder conviction created a legal designation. McGinn was found guilty of Restoric's murder, and that designation, stripped of its joint enterprise context, became the documentary shorthand for Triggerman. The court record doesn't support that shorthand. McGinn's own words to investigators, as recorded in the appeal judgment, don't support it. Harnden doesn't support it. The Belfast Telegraph doesn't support it. The 3 YouTube commenters, writing independently on the same video with their own names, don't support it. Steven Restick was born in Peterborough in 1973. His mother, Rita, worked for Peterborough City Council as a secretary. His father, John, had served in the RAF. February 1997 was Steven's second tour of Northern Ireland. He was 23. Rita Restick, in the memoir she published in 2000 to mark the 3rd anniversary of his death, describes the moment she heard her son had been killed. She describes going to the Chapel of Rest and seeing his number 1 black dress uniform. She describes writing to President Clinton at 4 in the morning, too shaken to hold the pen steadily, asking him to bring all sides to the table. Death of a Soldier, A Mother's Search for Peace in Northern Ireland, was published by Blackstaff Press, Belfast. The front cover photograph was developed from a film found in Steven's camera at the time of his death. She became a peace campaigner. She received the Champion of Courage Award at the Women of the Year lunch in 1997, alongside Lisa Potts and Doreen Lawrence. The woman whose driving licence Restorick was returning when he was shot was Lorraine McElroy. Rita Restorick, days after her son's death, sent flowers to McElroy in Bessbrook with the message, "Stephen is now back in Peterborough. Thank you for being there for him when we couldn't." Before Michael Caraher was released in July 2000, Rita Restorick requested and was granted a meeting with him in prison. The meeting is documented in her memoir. The Economist reported at the time that she had supported the peace agreement, but found the prospect of early releases for paramilitary prisoners painful. The BBC reported her saying those releases were painful but necessary. The details of that meeting belong to her memoir and to the two people in the room. She had buried her son in February 1997 at Peterborough Crematorium on the 24th of February 1997, what would have been Stephen's 24th birthday, his coffin draped with the Union Jack. 3 years later, she walked into a prison in Northern Ireland and asked to meet the man who had fired the round that killed him. Michael Caraher was 32 when he agreed to see her. He had been born in Cullyhanna, South Armagh. In December 1990, 12 years before that prison meeting, 7 years before Bessbrook Mill, he had been in a car outside the Light and Easy bar in Cullyhanna when 45 Commando Royal Marines shot his brother dead. Both of them had buried someone. That is the documented fact. The South Armagh Sniper campaign ran from 1990 to February 1997. The Barrett M90 recovered at the Freeduff farm on 10th of April 1997 is forensically linked to the 1997 shootings. The 4 men convicted at Belfast Crown Court on 19th of March 1999 were Michael Caraher, James McArdle, Martin Mines and Bernard McGinn. The Court of Appeal judgment of 29th of September 2000 in the case of the Queen versus Michael Caraher and Bernard Michael McGinn records McGinn's statement that he had travelled in the car used in the attack while another man fired the fatal shot, and that he incriminated his co-accused as the sniper. The Irish Times reported at sentencing that McGinn had incriminated his co-accused as the sniper. The Belfast Telegraph named Caraher as the man who shot the soldier with the large rifle. The last British soldier killed by the Provisional IRA before the August 1997 ceasefire was Lance Bombardier Steven Restick of the 3rd Regiment Royal Horse Artillery at Bessbrook Mill Permanent Vehicle Checkpoint, County Armagh, on 12th of February 1997. The triggerman was Michael Caraher, not Bernard McGinn. The audience has been writing that correction in YouTube comment threads in plain language with their names attached for years. The court record confirms it. The dates are in the public record. The names are now in the right order. Subscribe for more stories like this.